Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 191. So today you are here with Pete and I. We are here having an episode, the two of us today, having had some fantastic guests over the last few weeks. We had Elisha on last week, talk electric or AKA Electric Farmer. Talking about kettlebell juggling and music and all that kind of thing. Prior to that, we had Tim Anderson on talking about his new book, The Simple Book of Strength. Prior to that, we had Ollie Loom and Emma Rushen on talking about the documentary False Nine and grassroots women's football. So we are going to be with you today. We are going to have a bit of a chat. We are both off to Belfast tomorrow to spend the weekend with Paul McElroy and lots of other people on his 2-day workshop, which he was talking about when he was with us last. I think day one is called the Mastering the Kettlebell Press, and day two is Pillars of Power, and it's all about building strong legs. So no, we're looking forward to that. I'll start by checking in with Mr. Peter Lant, and then I've got some reviews to read.
Woo!
And to yes, we after it's been the longest open loop in podcast history, but we have got some reviews that we can now read, which I'm going to read, and we're going to give away some merch today before we crack on. But anyway, Pete, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I've got one question for you because we're sharing a room in Belfast, aren't we?
Yes.
So do you want to be the big spoon or the little spoon?
Well, I think we've got two separate beds.
All right, okay, it's not like that. Okay, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure that I made sure we've got twin beds.
That's good.
So,
That's what I call Sid that sometimes because I think it's on a Wednesday morning. I don't have any sessions, so like Sean gets up first when she's at work because she's off at the minute because she's a teacher. So she gets up first and lets Sid in, and he's the little spoon. Me and him just have a bit of a spoon while she makes a coffee. It's lush.
Oh, sounds lovely. No, I think
Yeah.
we should have twin beds, but you can still make the coffee in the morning if you want.
Well, no, we'll go downstairs for that. It'll be all right.
Oh yeah, we get some coffee downstairs. Yeah, no, brilliant. Okay, no, yeah. So yeah, you're looking forward to this weekend anyway. It's gonna be
Yeah. I haven't been away for ages. So like anywhere like out of this island. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. But it'll be good to catch up with a bunch of people as well. There's a load of people going over there, isn't there? And that guy, is it Stephen or whatever?
Stephen Keeley.
He was already here from Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's staying in Dublin at the moment. I think he's having a few days there, and then he's obviously going to come over for the weekend.
I'm looking forward to it. It'll be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I had a strange week. We're training up to it this week though, because Paul gave us some stuff to do, and I was like, I don't want to knacker myself out for the weekend. And we're just coming out of the Easter weekend, and we were away for that and stuff like that as well. So yeah, been interesting.
No, we were just saying it's going to be busy because we've got this weekend. We're over in Belfast with Paul and everyone else, and then the following weekend we've got Dan, John, and Tim Anderson over at my place. So that's going to be you'll be over here then. So that's going to be we've got a few busy weekends, which is going to be going to be really good though. Yeah, God, I'm going to be spending a lot of time with you, aren't I?
Yeah, look at you
in person. Yeah, exactly. Right, so we've got a couple of reviews in, and they've both come in on Apple Podcasts, which I think is our preferred way of getting reviews because we now know we can read them. So, and as we've been talking about this for ages, we've got two to read out, and we're going to give away some merch for both people. So I'm going to read the reviews first, and then I'm going to give you instructions, the two people who've left reviews, on how to get your merch, because I want to know kind of if you want a t-shirt or a hoodie and which color and which size and where we need to ship to and all the rest of it. So I'll just make that very quickly clear. And then hopefully more people can start leaving reviews now that we seem to be able to read them, and we can get that sorted. So review number one is from Mr. Chris Denning, who is a long-term friend of the show and former guest of the show as well, and based in Canada. And the review is a 5-star review, and it's big fan of the Health Oddity podcast. And he says, been listening to the Health Oddity podcast since the first episode, and it quickly became and still is one of my favorite shows. The hosts, James, Peter, and Paul, have great rapport and a long list of fascinating guests: Dan John, Paul McElroy, Tim Anderson, Phil Maffetone, among many others. And a good mix of episodes from host recaps or discussions, guest life stories, and educational topics. I always learn something. Keep up the great work, lads. So thank you very much, Mr. Chris Denning from Canada for that. And then we have another review coming from Eddie SP80, which again is a 5-star review, more concise. And he just says, great show, a great variety of guests on a weekly basis. So thank you to both of you. So we would like more reviews coming in. So both of you, so Chris Denning and Eddie SP80, if you can just message us either on Facebook or on Instagram, what you can do is you can go through the Instagram link tree on there, and you'll be able to see the shop. Go through, have a look, tell us if you want a t-shirt or a hoodie, and then also it will show you the color options, which size and which color. And then if you can also message us your postal addresses, we'll get them sent out next week to you. So either t-shirt or hoodie, color and size and postal address, and we'll get them sent out. So thank you very much to you two guys, Chris and Eddie, and more reviews. And then what I'll do is, I can't promise that we'll give merch away for every single review that comes in, but we'll do for both of them, because we've obviously been waiting a while to be able to access them, and now we have. So thank you very much. So that's great. So I thought what we would do, I've got a kind of a quote that I'm going to use as a bit of a springboard for today's show. And often, as happens with Pete and myself and with guests that we have on, we kind of have a kind of a springboard option, you know, a quote or something that then starts the conversation off, and we kind of go off in various directions with it. I do have to say that if I think Amazon, from a number of people I've spoke to, have gone and watched Falling Down since the podcast that we did recently, where I talked about my almost meltdown, and we referenced, yeah, go on, Pete.
On that note, I watched The Long Good Friday the other week because it was Good Friday.
Oh,
so
okay.
it popped up on wherever it was. I don't know which streaming thing it was on. So I watched that. I haven't seen that for years. And basically, I mean, if you're in the States and that, this won't mean anything. But over here, it's basically a who's who of everyone who's ever either been in EastEnders or Only Fools and Horses.
Oh,
it's like everybody. Like there's a guy who the go.
Is it Bob Hoskins? Is Bob Hoskins in that?
It's Bob Hoskins, Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
Charlie from Holby City or whatever.
Oh,
Charlie
okay.
from the Head's in it.
Yeah.
Mike the landlord from Only Fools and Horses, from the Nag's Head. He's in it. The guy who plays the Australian guy who buys the car off Del Boy. I know all these things. I know old comedies. He's in it. Gillian Tailforth's in it. You know, Calf's Calf.
Yeah.
Denzel's in it. From Only Fools and Horses. Honestly, everybody. I was like, it's him. They're all in it. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh dear.
Pierce Brosnan's in it.
Oh,
he's like one of the. I think it's like it's meant to be the IRA. So
he's an Irish. Yeah.
He's in it. It's just honestly, it's great.
No, because a few people spoke to me, and after I said about, we went off on a bit of a tangent talking about Michael Douglas Falling Down. A few people said, "Oh, I've got to watch that again now. I've got to go and watch it because it's such a good film."
Another one that's I tried watching this with Sean the other night, and she just couldn't be bothered. But The Waterfront, I think, is on BBC iPlayer as well. So
yeah.
Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando.
I could have been somebody.
Yeah, I could have been a contender.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we were totally not related to the podcast or not, but we watched Steph and I the other day watched Tremors for the first time in about.
See that for years.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it for about 30 years, and it's Kevin Bacon, isn't it? When he was, it's 1990, so it's 34 years old.
What's the name of the other guy?
Yes.
Who died recently, didn't he? I think. Remo. He was Remo, unarmed and dangerous.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but yeah, I know the other guy. Yeah.
That was
great.
Oh,
that was
man.
great. There we go. That's well worth a watch. Tremors again. It held up quite well, actually. Anyway, the quote that I've got was from a dietitian who I follow called Shane Nugent, and it was specifically around. I'll also just give a quick shout out as well to one of our members, Jerry Budd, has started listening to the podcast from episode 1 again. He went back to listen to it, but then he did listen to the one that I've just mentioned. I think it was episode 187. He listened to that recently and was very complimentary about that. So yeah, welcome Jerry to listening. So this is specifically a quote that he was using around nutrition and diet. But I thought we could kind of use it as a bit of a springboard because it relates to everything. It probably relates to everything in life, to be honest, not just diet and training. But the quote was, "Complication is the enemy of implementation." So, as we know, and there's a similar kind of quote that I've used before, which is in this day and age, in the internet age, where you have access to every single piece of information that has ever been conceived of, published, broadcast in history, basically at the tapping of a few keys on your phone or your keyboard. It's that nowadays people don't really need education and information. What they really need is help with implementation, which is another thing, because back in the day people might have come to you for, certainly as a trainer or something, they might have come to you for information and paid you for information. But now information is pretty much free, isn't it? Like anywhere any information you want is free online. So really what people need help with now is I suppose sifting through the information and simplifying the information and then implementing the information in a way that's applicable and appropriate to them. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting because I think there's another saying, isn't there? That kind of, what's it called? Paralysis by analysis, and just being overwhelmed, overwhelmed with the amount of information out there that often stops people from doing anything because they're confused. Whereby the more simple you can make something, the more likely you are to do something. I mean, what do you think, Pete, in terms of your work with your clients, your own training, your own lifestyle? Do you try and keep things as simple as possible, as much as possible?
Absolutely. I'm a simple man.
Thank you. Right. Cheers. See you later. Bye.
No, I was just thinking we could do a whole podcast on quotes on this, like, or like concepts of like the paradox of choice and all of that sort of stuff. We could just reel them off, one-liners.
Yeah.
Like, who is it? Milton Jones or whatever, like one of those comedians who just does like Tim Vine, who just does one-liners all the way through. We could do a podcast based on that. That'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, totally. I mean, this was you said it was applied to nutrition, and it's one of those things, because you've said as well that there's all the information that you need to know is out there.
Yeah.
But all the misinformation that clouds your kind of decision making or whatever is also out there as well. That's the thing. That's the way I kind of look at it as well. It's all out there. I was just listening to something actually with Dan John on it, and he was talking about when he first started lifting in like 1965 and all that sort of stuff, and up until kind of the bodybuilding era, there was information out there, but it was in magazines and stuff like that. So that would come out monthly. So if there was a bad idea, you had to wait 30 days for the next bad idea, right? There was one bad idea in there, whereas now they're everywhere. And good ideas are everywhere as well, right? But you're kind of, you're a slave to an algorithm, aren't you? Of whatever you look at then becomes what you look at. And then it stays like that. So, and then you're bombarded with information, and then you're told it's this way, not that way. It's my way, not his way or her way or whatever. And it's like, they all work. It's the ones that you apply. It's the saying as well, but let's do sayings all the way through, isn't it? The best program is the one you can stick to. And that doesn't matter if it's a diet, if it's a training program, if it's like a philosophy or whatever. The one you can stick to, the one you believe in, the one that works for you, the one you're happy with. Loads of people go running, for instance, right? I hate running. I'll go walking because it's much more civilized. But but it's I don't mean that, by the way. but I don't like it. I just don't like it. But loads of people love it and swear by it, and which is fine because it works for them, right? So yeah, where do you begin? Where do you begin on this? To be honest,
Yeah, I mean, there's
like
so much. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
implementation is the thing, because so many people read up and go, right, once I've got all the information I need, then I'll begin. So you've got all the information you need. If you're not sleeping well, there's certain things you can do. If you feel sluggish and tired all the time, there's different things you can eat, and there's ways of, like, calming your mind down and all that, because it could be any of those things. It's not necessarily just nutrition. It's not just mindset. It's not just exercise. It's not just, I was going to say, it's not just lifestyle. It is lifestyle, but it's a certain aspect of life. You might hate your job. You might love your job, but hate your home life or whatever. It's a massive subject, which is why it's so complicated. And so, like you say, with the way I work with like my clients and stuff like that, it's all different. It's all different. Like my online guys, especially, let's say, two examples I can think of. One is a guy who works out no problem, and he's in his 50s, pretty ripped. He gets stronger. He does what he's told, because he loves it, right? But then there's other aspects that aren't necessarily there for him, right? He runs his own business and all of that sort of stuff, and he's got like a few ideas of other stuff that he wants to do. Another guy is employed. He doesn't like his job. He's overweight, and that's what he struggles with. He struggles with his weight, but that's because of where his mindset's at. And he turns up for exercise and stuff like that, but he's not as committed to that as the other guy. So therefore, he needs a different kind of a different way of thinking of it, a different approach. So everyone's different. And that's where, like, the whole just do HIIT training, just do kettlebells, just do barbells, just go down the gym, just go running, just go do high rocks, do train for a Tough Mudder, whatever. All of these things, they're all great, but for me, the big thing for me now is obviously Walk Bath and just finding a community of people who'll get together and go for a walk. And then you can go from there, There was a lady on the last one who ended up, she was really tired. So we hung back with her, me and another lady. Sean took everyone else forwards and we hung back. And I wasn't expecting that because it's not happened with her before. Maybe she was having a bad day, I don't know. But like, hopefully it'll make, and like, we just had a chat and stopped when she needed to and stuff like that. But it was just like, hopefully it's one of those things that will make her think like, oh, I need to get a little bit fitter or whatever, but we're not going to push that. It's just, it will happen. She'll hopefully realize that or not. It doesn't matter. It's not up to me, is it? I'm rambling now, but
no, it's true. Because I think though that the main thing, isn't it? It's, I find sometimes that it's overthinking things. And I suppose overthinking comes from having too many options and too much choice and too much information out there. But it's overthinking things to the extent that sometimes it stops you taking any action at all, because you don't want to take the wrong action, so you don't take any action. And then and if you take no action, that's the surest way that you're not going to make any improvement or get anywhere at all, isn't it? There's going to be zero change. Where at least if you take some action, then you get feedback on if it's the right one or not, and so on, and I know that there is a need. There's not a need. There's a kind of, I suppose, capitalism and finance. There's a kind of a desire sometimes to make things more complicated and more complex than they need to be, to then be able to charge for them. And it's almost like you're the gatekeeper of some kind of secret, and you can impart this knowledge, so you've got to pay me lots of money so I can teach it to you. But whereas I think what we're trying to do on here on the podcast, and what it's on the intro, isn't it? Is we're trying to dispel or overcome some of the jargon and the clutter and just to get to the basics of what actually works. And what actually works for people is really, really simple, for everybody, regardless of who you are. And it's just a case of doing it. We don't try and overcomplicate things on this podcast, do we? We try and simplify it as much as possible, because I think that is what, and I do with my clients as well. I try and break everything down to the most basic, most simple, exercises or ways of teaching or ways of talking, or ways of eating or ways of living. Because I just think if you start with the basics and you get them right, then you can tweak and you can always go into more detail down the line. But until you start doing the basics right, there's no need to be more complicated, is there? In terms of training, it's like Dan John says, doesn't he? He says, like, if you want to get stronger, lift weights. You know what I mean? That's if you want to go out for a walk, lift weights, get a good night's sleep, drink water, eat protein, eat your veggies. All the basics. Yeah.
It's funny. I've got loads going on in my head now. Like when you think when it comes down to it, it's what do you want, right? And people all want many things. I want to lose weight. I want to be faster. I want to be fitter. I want to be stronger. I want to run a marathon while being able to deadlift double my body weight, and what have like whatever it is that people come. It's like, right, okay, which one of them do you want? Pick one. The losing weight thing will probably help with all the other stuff anyway, or a lot of it. Like especially cardio, fitness, and what have like all that sort of stuff. But it's like, right, what do you want? I want that, right? Here's it, like that's the main thing you want. Here's how to get there. Where are you at? And then here's what we need to do to get there. And that's pretty much it for most people. But it's different for everybody, right? Because people want different things and they're starting from different places. But once you've established those two things, it's like, how do you get from there to there? You do this. And that's where like a coach comes in or whatever, because you'll be like really confused thinking like, well, there's all this information out there. I want to get from where I'm at now to losing 3 stone and becoming fitter and stronger. So I'm going to pick a training thing, pick one. I'm going to do that. But it might not be necessarily the right one, the fastest one, because everyone wants everything quick, and in this day and age, you've got to kind of deliver quick results. But if you're starting from the where you're at thing, if you're starting from scratch, you're going to get fast results anyway. But if you get used to that and then you get disillusioned when they slow down, that's when you fall off. So it's like, well, no, you've got to then manage your expectations of like, you've done really well and you've been consistent. Now all you need to do is just keep doing that in the thing you're doing or in something else that'll get you closer to where you want to be. That might be slightly different, but you've just got to be consistent at it. But if you continue to say, right, that one's stalled, it's the Learn to Love the Plateau from the Mastery book by George Leonard. You get to a point and then you plateau. And if you just say, right, I give up now because it's not working, that's when everything goes back to where it was.
Something you said just made me think it's so really funny. When people join us, when we start, we go through like a few sort of sessions where we're kind of fact finding about, we do a little bit of training, we talk, we do some forms, and we ask lots of questions and get to know the person, behind the person, so that you kind of get to know the personality of the person as well. And one of the questions we have is do you find that you start exercise programs, but then you're unable to stick with them, and then people will either say, yeah, that's fairly accurate, or no, I think once I start something, I tend to stick with it. And I had a lady recently and she said, yeah, that's right. And then the follow-on question is, how long do you normally last? Because usually people will say, usually after about 2 months, I get bored. I start going to the gym, and at the 2-month mark, that's usually when I struggle, or 1 month, or whatever it is. And it's kind of, so I had this conversation with this lady, and I said, do you find yourself unable to stick with exercise programs? Yes, definitely. And then I said, well, what? Oh no, the next question is, why is that? And then a lot of the time they might say, oh, because I get bored, or I get bored, or I get impatient because I'm not getting results quick enough. And then she said, "Oh, I get bored." And I said, "Oh, how long do you normally last?" And she said, this is the way I phrased the question. She said, "Oh, usually about 30 minutes." I was like, so I was cracking up. I was like, well, no, I didn't mean it like that, but that's interesting, you know. 'Cause I think that's the thing. Like people, they decide they're going to try and get uh, fitter, healthier, whatever. Go to your kind of and the normal thing that a lot of people think is, "Oh, I'll join the local gym. You know, I'll join the gym," and they go along, they have an induction, and then they just get left to themselves and
Mm.
get bored, and then it's just almost from session one, it's just you trying to fight the boredom or the you don't want to be there, you know, and it's you trying to override through willpower, just going to do this thing that you really don't enjoy and you find boring and you don't feel natural and you don't and you know it's not, you know, you're not a gym person as people say, and that's why, you know, they maybe do 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks and just give up, you know, and
Yeah.
then don't go back or go back a year later or 2 years later and do another month and then give up, you know.
Yeah, you see this with this. I spoke to one of my online guys about this last week, and he brought up something absolutely hilarious, which I'll come to in a second. But like Dan and Tim talked about this when they were on together, and Dan said people throw out a softball, don't they? Where, you know, so it's like why, you know, the old question: keep asking why, keep asking why, keep asking why. You know, why do you want to lose weight? Why? And then it's always about, well, because I want to be there for my kids and all that. And it's like, well, and he said that's a softball, isn't it? You know, because it's like, well, it's not about, it's about you.
Mm.
There's a reason within you. And I was saying this, that people say that. And this guy, he said, yeah, it's like the Chris Rock thing, isn't it? About, you know, I look after my kids, and it's like, well, you're supposed to, aren't you? You know, you've seen that one. I'll not go
Yeah,
into it because it obviously uses a lot of language that you don't want to use two white guys on a podcast. But
yeah.
and Michael Scott does it in. Have you ever watched The American Office?
Yeah,
He
yeah,
does it. They
yeah.
go, don't do the Chris Rock thing, and he does it. And it's like, oh God, no. But anyway, so this guy was going on about this. And he said, yeah, like, you know, I look after my kids. And it's like, well, you're supposed to. And that's the whole thing. It's like, I want to be there for my kids. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to do that. That's a given. That's not a
Mm.
reason why. So fine, like, you know, keep digging. And it's the whole thing about becoming the person, because like being part of your character, isn't it? So because most people start out thinking, I want to lose weight, I want to get thinner, I want a six pack or whatever it is. I want to, you know, I'm talking about me here when I first started. I want to lose weight. I'm not happy with myself. I want to be fitter. I get out of breath, going like walking down the street or whatever. All those very common things. But that's all surface level stuff. It just all is. I was like, basically, it's like, I want to be that person who is driven. I want to be that person who gets up in the morning and knows what they're doing and knows what they want. And that's becoming the person, not going for a workout. So the boredom then, my workouts are really boring, like really boring.
But they're not, I would
But,
say, for you.
well, no, they are. And sometimes I don't want to do them,
Mm.
but I know how it feels at the end of it, and I know what the results look like because they're happening as I go, and I can feel it. And then every now and then, Paul will send me something and go, just do this, and I'll be like, oh, that's a bit out of the blue. I'll do it, and I can do it, or I can't. So at least we know where we're at. And there's always a way around stuff. There's always a way. Like when you reach a plateau, there's always something slightly different, and then it'll be like, do it like this instead. And it's slightly different, but very much the same. But it feels different.
It's amazing.
So most people, that would be boring. But to
Yeah.
me, it's like, okay, now I know this is going to take me to the next level of who I want to be. You know,
It's so interesting because I know exactly what you mean. Like when I've been doing 5 sets of, say, deadlifts for ages. And then this week, Paul sent me it through and it was like 3 sets of deadlifts, but heavier. And you're like, and it's kind of quite exciting because you're like, oh, I've gone from
yeah,
5 sets to 3 sets. It's exactly the same exercise that I've been doing for months and months and months. But that is enough variety to be different enough that it's different. You know, it's like or I've just gone up from using the 28 kilo bell to using the 30 kilo bell, and just this week, and so the volumes come right down again, and the weight's gone up. And it's just enough to kind of it keeps me interested. It keeps me like you say, you can see the path, you know, oh, I'm improving here. You know, it's weird. It's really weird. But I mean, so I don't. So when people, you know, like you've said before, haven't you, that like you give someone a set of 20 swings to do or 25 swings, and they say, oh, I get really bored doing that. It's like 25 swings, or you know, or people say to me, "Oh, sitting on a spinning bike for 45 minutes, oh, it's too boring." I kind of think you have to recalibrate what you think boring is, don't you? You know, when you're training, if you are properly training, because if you are properly training, it's doing a lot of the same stuff most of the time. You know?
Now you see, sitting on a spin bike for me, boring.
Yeah, but it's the music. The music.
I don't do it.
Yeah.
But I don't do it.
The music. Yeah.
Other people find it great and they love the music and excellent and all that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Boring. So boring.
Yeah.
But I don't do it. And if you want to do it, that's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
If you really enjoy it, crack on. Everyone's different. It's what makes the world go around, doesn't it?
Yeah. But you know what I mean? But some people will find all of it boring. You know, they'll say say any kind of thing's boring. And I think we've said this before on the podcast. I'm convinced that people who use the fact that it's boring is just an excuse not to do it.
Yeah. So what was I going to say? Yeah, but that is the character. So my character is now I lift weights. I lift heavy weights for who I am now, because I got to a point where I was stronger than I'd ever been. Now I'm at a point where I'm even like way stronger than that, because I got Paul as a coach to take my bias out of it and just say, you know what you're doing, just program it for me and I'll do it. And you know how it works. You don't hear from him. You just get a thing every week and goes, do this. And you're like, all right. And it works, right? It's like, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
And but that's in my character. That is now my character. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. I'd have been like, no, I'm sick of that now. I want to do this, and I want to try a bit of that, and try a bit of that, and do a bit of this, and I'll do a half marathon, and I was that person. I want to lose weight and do a half marathon and be as strong as I can, and all of this. And it's like, you know, I mean, I ended up nine. You spoke about this. I ended up 9 stone at one point. You ended up really light, didn't you, for boxing and stuff like that? And it's like, it was horrible. I thought I looked great, and now I look at it now, and I look like a Playmobil man with a massive head. You know what I mean? So it's but at the time that's what I thought I wanted, but I didn't. And now, actually, when I look at myself now, I don't see much difference in my body. I feel difference in my head. I feel different. I feel stronger. I'm in less pain. I don't get an achy back. I get a little bit of an achy shoulder on my left. That's an old thing from years ago. But it's not as bad as it used to be, and all of that. But I talked to Sean, so we met 8 years ago, nearly. And she's like, you look totally different than when I met you, because you've got bigger and broader and all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, but I don't notice that, but she has, right? So that's, it's the results happen. They just take consistency in a long time, but most people don't want to hear that because they want it now.
I think something else that you just touched upon, which is really important, which we kind of which we talked about earlier or mentioned earlier, is this kind of this I keep meaning to write this blog about fitness FOMO, you know, this fear of missing out, where you've got shiny object syndrome, you know, where you think, I want to get stronger, I want to get leaner, I want to do high rocks, I want to do, you know, an Ironman, I want to, you know, do the London Marathon, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to get kettlebell certified, I want to do weightlifting, whatever. And people don't pick something, you know, to focus on, and then as a consequence, they get nothing of nothing. They get nowhere with anything, you know, because they're trying
Yeah.
to do, they're jumping around too much. So that consistency of approach and consistency of goal and just picking something, regardless, like I said, regardless of what it is, pick something and get good at it and stick with it. Again, I think is why people struggle, because they're constantly looking to be amused or entertained or stimulated by, you know, training or exercise or what they're trying to achieve. They just need that constant change and that constant variety and that constant stimulation, where I think the people who get the best results are not always seeking that. You know, they
It's
got a
that's
focus.
why I'll tell you. You mentioned high rocks, right? I don't even know what it is. I roughly know what it is, right? But I think it's great. It's a great model.
Mm.
Sounds like, because it's easy. It's not easy, but it's easy stuff, right? It's like
Low skill movements, yeah,
low skill movements that most people will be able to do, and are less likely to get injured doing. So
Mm.
it's a bit like CrossFit, but without like loads of weights, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So there's less chance of injury and all that. And I'm not knocking CrossFit, but it's, you know, it's like we've all heard about what goes on there. It's so it seems very similar to that, but also very inclusive. But like families get involved, husband and wife teams, and all of this sort of stuff. So it just sounds. I mean that you know, people. That's why I think it's taken off and exploded, because people just. I mean, the marketing is obviously really good as well, but people get really involved in it because they can do it. You can do it alone if you want to. You can do it in a team. You can do it
A
like I
pair,
say,
yeah,
couple,
yeah,
and all of that. It's brilliant,
yeah.
and that's where people see the excitement in that.
Mm.
But how many exercises is it really? From what I've
Yeah,
heard, it's like
it's running, and then it's like half a dozen movements or so. It's, you know, you
yeah.
got, I think it's a ski erg. Um, is it the ski erg, the rower, maybe the bike? It's like a farmer's walk. It's like a sled push and pull. It's like walking lunges and burpees or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. I know
But
that's
if
not.
you did those
Oh,
all day
wall
every
balls
day,
as well. Yeah.
if you did those all day every day, you're going to get bored, right?
Yeah.
Well, not all day, but if you did those every day, you're going to get bored. Of course you are. But people love it.
Mm.
So it's yeah,
That's
it's
because, but again, that's touching on because you're training for an event or for a goal, aren't you? You know,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So when you go to the gym and you're like, I just want to roughly get a bit fitter. It's like,
Mm.
right, okay, what does that mean? I want to get stronger. What does that mean? You know, and unless later on, I would say it's kind of, I mean, I've got a goal, but I don't even know how far I am away from it. I just know that if I do what I do every day, like every day, show up every day, it'll get me closer to it. But if it's just, I just generally want to get stronger. There's no way of knowing. Well, you do know if you are, but there's no way of knowing where you're going, where you're getting towards, is there? And that's when, like the brain. I've spoken about this before. The brain likes closed loops.
Mm.
So it's like, am I getting closer to where I want to be? Well, where do you want to be? I don't know. Therefore, you don't know.
Mm.
Therefore, the brain's just going to go, what's the point?
Mm.
And, you know, it's not you're going to go, what's the point? Your brain will just be like, what's it? Your brain tells you things that you don't even know, right? Tim Anderson spoke about this. You've never had a thought that your brain didn't know about, right? So in the background, it'll be going, what's the point in this? And I've thought about that, even though I've got a specific goal. What's the point in getting to that? Because nothing happens. Nothing will happen. I'll do it and I'll go, hey, and that's it.
It's not like you get a gold medal
No,
and, you
and
know,
nobody's going to care.
yeah.
Nobody's going to care.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, nobody will give a shit. But it doesn't matter.
Mm.
But I'm aware of that, so I'm cool with that. But yeah. So when you haven't got like a direct, like you know, star, the way Will would talk about it or whatever, like one of those things. I mean, like this is the thing; it all goes across mindset and physicality, nutrition, all of that. It's all the same thing, isn't it? What's your goal?
Mm.
You know, and your goal for nutrition doesn't necessarily need to be losing weight. It can be like, I want to eat well 80% of the time. I'm going to start off with, where are you at now? Well, I'll just eat crap all day, every day. I probably have like the odd vegetable here and there. Right. Let's make it 10% of the time and go from there. You know what I mean? Start out slowly. So there's different ways of looking at it, isn't there? That's the thing.
One of the things I was listening to Dan's podcast earlier today, actually in the car, Dan Johns, and he was talking, and someone had asked a question about, you know, he's got this theory, and I'm sure he'll talk about it next weekend when he's with us. his model of, you've either got park bench workouts and programs or bus bench workouts and programs. So a park bench is something you sit on and you just watch the day go by, and you know, something might happen, something might not, but you're there without any expectation, you know, is a park bench. But a bus bench, if you're sitting at a bus stop on a bench, you're expecting a bus to come along at a certain time. Yeah. So you're expecting an outcome when you're training with a degree of direction for an outcome. So someone had written a question and said, what's actually the difference between a park bench program and a bus bench program? And can a bus bench program be a park bench program that you just do for years on end and you just keep improving, but you've not got a deadline for it, you're not peaking for a competition, you're just doing as a part? So really for you, I think that the work that you're doing in your programming with Paul, it's kind of like a park bench program workout, which is like same as mine, really, but with, you know, with results along the way. But the results just come when they come, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like you expect the result, but you're not but that's not why you're doing it. You're not expecting a result at a particular time, and you've not got a peak for a competition or a contest. You know, you're just doing it to get stronger, and it's almost like an ongoing part. And he said some people can do the same program for, like, you know, 8 years, you know, and constantly be doing it. And I found, like yesterday, I'd never deadlifted 150 kilos more than like one rep, you know, and that was like going for like a 1 RM type thing. And then yesterday I did like 3 sets of 3 with 150, and did off of a 13-inch, a slightly higher one, like 1 set of 8 with 150. And that's miles more than I've ever done in my life. And I'm 46 this year. And I didn't peak for that. I didn't actually feel really like doing it, like training. I just kind of, I felt like, oh, well, I'll see how I feel. If I don't manage it today, it's fine, but I'll do it. And you do it, and you suddenly think, God, that's miles more than I've done in my life. And I've just done it on a Wednesday, you know, Wednesday, middle of the Wednesday morning, when I'm not feeling particularly great, and it's just happened. You know, I've done it, you know, and that's the park bench, isn't it, really?
That's huge, though, isn't it? If you think about it.
Yeah.
On a day that you weren't feeling like you could be bothered, you did more than you've ever done. Like that. I mean, I don't know how you go into that mindset wise, as in, are you thinking like, I'll do this today because it's in my program, but I'm not sure whether I'll be able to or not. Or you just go, I'm just going to go and do it. I can't be bothered, but I'll do it. Because if you think, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to or not, the likelihood of not being able to do it goes up, doesn't it? It doesn't mean you won't do it. It just goes up.
I think I knew I could do it, but I didn't really know if I could be bothered to do it. You know, I don't know. I didn't know if I wasn't really in the mood to do it. That's what I should. Yes. That's the thing. That actually, yes, that's the thing. I wasn't really in the mood to do it, and I think that's another whole podcast, isn't it? Around, Mark Rifkind always used to say, didn't he? When you wake up in the morning, don't ask yourself if you feel like training. You know, whether you feel like, and I know Mike Dolce recently I've seen talk about it, and a few other people who say, I don't ask myself if I feel like training, I just train, you know.
Mike Dolce, is he the one that did Shut Up Your Face?
No.
Who was that?
No, I don't know.
That was somebody Dolce, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? I don't know.
I think so.
But you know, it's like, I'm going to train. It doesn't matter if you feel like it or not. You know, it's not like, do I feel like it or do I not feel like it? You just do it. You know, it's kind of that discipline mindset.
I'll tell you what's crossed my mind is the goal. The thing about the goal is I almost don't want to get to mine. Because once I get there, I don't know what, like, I mean, there'll be something. In fact, I've already got a goal beyond it, but I kind of I'm enjoying what I'm doing to get there. So what happens when you get there? Nothing. So I'm kind of like, well, I just want to keep at it because it's getting me towards something, you know. I haven't got like a further thought on that, I suppose, but it's. I mean, you hear this about boxers who win titles and Olympians and all that, and then they're like, "Well, that's it. I've worked my whole life to get to here. I'm now here. What do I do next?" And they're only like 30.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and it's that's kind of. I mean, I obviously think like further in the future and think what I'm going to be like when I'm 80 and what have you. But yeah, I almost don't want to get to it because I think like nothing happens. And there's an old guy who I think I saw him the other day. I think I spoke about him before in the park. You just talked about park benches, and it made me think of him because he sits on a park bench with his walker. I think someone drops him off in a car, and he sits on a park bench in his walker. And he used to walk super slowly. Like we do a session for an hour, and he'd walk to the end of the road and back. And it would take him all that time. But I just loved it because he's there every single day. Now he doesn't walk as far. And it used to be him and I'm assuming he's misses, and I haven't seen her for a while now. So we're like, who knows what's happened there? But now, but even if like say it got more frail or she's like tragically died or whatever, he's still out doing it because he can. But now he doesn't go half as he goes like to the next bench and back. But that's his. And if that's an hour a day, that's an hour that he's not sitting around doing nothing. And I find that like so inspiring when I see stuff like that, which is what keeps me thinking like, well, I'm just going to keep doing it. But I don't know what happens when I get to whatever it is I'm going for.
I just pulled up a quote that I kind of just took a screenshot of the other day. We liked it. It's fall in love with the process and the results will follow. And that's kind of what I see with your training, like you just do it week in, week out, and you're making these, you might go through a period of time where it doesn't really feel like you're making progress, but then you'll have a period where you just jump up, like it appears that you kind of go to the next level, and then you're there. So
that's the mastery book though.
Yeah.
You get initial results, then you plateau and you plateau and you plateau. And if you stay on the plateau, eventually it'll
go up again. Yeah.
And this was something I thought of while you were talking earlier as well. People want fast results. They want the result. And like I've just said, I'm at the point now where I actually almost don't want the result because I don't know what happens after that. So it's like I want to keep going towards it, but never get there. Because then that just becomes who you are. So if you want the result, it's like, yeah, that's great. If you get a result in 3 months, that'll be why most people give up. I say that'll be why. I don't know this for sure, but in my head, that's why people give up after a certain amount of time, 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is. It just so happens that all of the things that are sold out there are a month, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months, whatever. And that's it. And some people will change who they are in that process and carry on. But I would say most people don't. Either do as much as they think they need to do within the process and maybe not get the result and say it doesn't work. Don't bother with just buy it and don't bother with it, or buy it, do it exactly as it is, get the result and then go, right, I'm done. Thank you. 3 months and I'm done. So it's no wonder that people fall off after that amount of time in my head. I'd love to know the actual the stats behind that of like, is it because programs are like that and they're that long?
Well, I think the classic one, isn't it? It's whether, again, it's whether you're motivated towards or away from something. So the classic one in our industry and what we're talking about here really is losing weight. And it's if people are moving away from being fat or feeling fat, and they have in their mind, I want to lose 2 stone. Say, just pick a number, 2. I want to lose 2 stone, so I won't feel fat anymore. And they work really hard. They lose that 2 stone. They get to that point where they've lost the 2 stone. They don't feel fat anymore. They feel good, but that was the goal, And then gradually that weight comes back on to the point where they feel, fat again, and they've put their 2 stone back on, and they have to start the process again. They're constantly moving away from feeling fat and feeling uncomfortable and the clothes not fitting, for example, and then they get into a good place, and then then they get to the good place. But the goal was never any more than that or any different than that. It was just to not feel fat and not be uncomfortable and all the rest of it. And it gradually, that's that constant loop that people get stuck into, because there's never that feeling of moving towards something more empowering or more desirable, or more fulfilling. It's just moving away from feeling rubbish and feeling bad. And you get to a point where you don't feel rubbish, you don't feel bad, and then you're there, and then, but because you haven't fundamentally changed anything about yourself, you 6 months later, you're back where you started again. It's
That's exactly it. And that's where I was talking the other week about acceptance. We had acceptance, awareness, accountability, adaptation. So acceptance is accepting that everything around you is an influence and all of that. So how do I put this quickly? And it's not saying you need to get rid of everyone in your life and all of this, but when I was younger, I used to hang around with a load of people who went out and got pissed all the time, right? And that's what I did. And if I ever wanted to get fit, if I ever wanted to lose weight, anything like that, I could go and do that, but then I'd still be around those people. So then all I was going to be going now was getting pissed and eating and what have you. So I don't hang around with those people anymore, and I haven't for years, and I don't hang around with people who do that anymore. And that's changed. I hang around with like you guys, and the people who I know here, we might go for a few beers and stuff like that, but they're not, we'll have like 1 or 2 and they're like, oh, it's 8 o'clock, shall we go home? You know what I mean? So that's how it is, right? We went out for one of the guys. We went out for his 50th birthday. Went to the football in Bath, so at Twerton Park. Very, very, very low league football. We met at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Had a pint in the pub. Went to the football. Went back to the pub and had a couple of pints. Went for a curry, and everyone was home by 8 o'clock on a birthday night out. Got in and Sean was like, what are you doing back? And I was like, fancy watching a film or something. I had like loads of time, you know what I mean? So what was I saying? Yeah, so it's the acceptance that the stuff around you is an influence. And you said it exactly right. You can lose the 2 stone, but you haven't changed who you are. So it doesn't matter. So therefore, if you can change who you are for a short period of time and then go back to who you were, or you can decide that you need to be a different person to become that new person. And you need to start somewhere. And again, that starts with just consistent small practice every day, doesn't it? On whatever it is that is causing you to put the weight on, which is possibly overeating, probably overeating, or it could be stress or whatever. And I mean, the interplay of all this stuff is massive, isn't it? So you've just got to pinpoint whatever it is that's the problem and work on that, which is different for everybody.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's interesting. Again, like I said, when we started this, I started with a quote, with a kind of an idea, if you like, and then we always, go in a variety of tangents. But I always feel like we have a good conversation, and hopefully, people listen. I got I've had some good feedback recently on some of these podcasts, actually, especially the last one that we did. That was just 2 of us talking, because people sort of say, "Oh, it's really helpful," because the guy at the gym, Matt Sales, who listens, who's done his strong first. He's done his
he's
tall, dark hair. Done his SFG, done his SFL, SFL now, SFB. He's doing the SFG too in a few weeks, and he's in his 50s, and he's not a trainer. He's got a job in insurance in London and everything, but he listened to the podcast, the last one that we did, about the falling down stuff, and said, "Oh, it's really interesting to hear you and Pete talking, because we spoke, didn't we, about, getting frustrated and one thing after another, and then leading you to want to, have a drink or eat the wrong foods, or just feel some sort of frustration, and then maybe some destructive behaviors and things like that." And he sort of said, it's just really good, because sometimes when that happens to me, I think that I'm the only one like that, so to hear other people it's a common thing, you know, like there are other people out there feeling exactly the same thing. It's kind of comforting and helpful, you know, because you don't feel like you're on your own, you know. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's huge. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other thing. But there's some Paul Moore used to say to me, you know, it was like there aren't no new thoughts. There aren't any. Anything you're thinking, everyone else, like someone somewhere has thought it before.
Mm.
Um, it just is. But lots of people like that. That's interesting that he said that, because he's somebody whose character, if he's done like the strong first stuff and he's been at your gym for so long, I know he's been there for years, hasn't he? So
Yeah.
that's become, he's changed who he is. I assume that he wasn't always like that. So, I mean, he might have been. That's
Mm.
one of the 4 agreements. Never assume. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
I've just
Yeah,
assumed.
no, but I think no, but no, yeah, you're correct. Yeah, I think you're correct. Yeah.
So therefore, he's done this, but he can think he's the only one who thinks that it's hard or whatever. And it's like everyone does. Everyone struggles.
Mm.
Everyone does. And if they don't, if they don't, they're lying. As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. It's yeah, that's interesting. That.
No, it was good. Right. Yeah, no, I think we'll wrap up there. That's great because I know we're both busy and we've got flights to catch tomorrow and get over to Belfast, and it's going to be good. So we were due to have David Keown, Indiana Stones, on this episode. He was all lined up, and we are very excited to have him on. But unfortunately, I think he got COVID and he's lost his voice, so he couldn't have come on and done it today. So we're going to
Done
reshoot.
it through the theme of the medium of dance or something like that.
Yeah, he's lost his voice, so it wouldn't be very good. So yeah, we're rescheduling with him. We've also got Nick Rainbird coming on. That's actually quite an apt name, actually. Yeah, we've also got Nick Rainbird coming on soon, who's going to talk about sort of forest bathing and at the benefit of being outdoors, really, you know, which we've spoke about loads before, you know, and being immersed in nature, and things like that. We've got him coming on soon. I'm just having a quick look. It was Nick Rainbird. Yeah,
Right.
Rainbird.
Right, telling Sean about the benefit of being outdoors. She got back with the dog while we're recording this, and it's been
Soaked. She drenched.
hammering
Yeah.
it down. It's like being outside's rubbish.
Yeah, so we're gonna have Nick on, and he's also doing his Wim Hof instructor training as well. So he's very outdoorsy, and like I say, David Keown as well will be back on soon. So yeah, we got those lined up. And in the meantime, please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you can, please, on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review, and when they come through, we will read them out on air. And we will be giving away some merch for good reviews that come through for us, which will be great. And thank you again for Chris Denning and Eddie. And like I say, message us with hoodie, t-shirt, size, color, and delivery address and everything, and we'll get that sorted out next week for you. And we will be back next week did I say this was episode 191? I think I did. So we'll be back next week with episode 192. We'll be able to talk actually probably next week about, depending upon who we have on, we'll be able to talk about what we got up to in Belfast with Paul McElroy and loads of other people. And then next weekend, like we said, we'll be with Dan and Tim, which will be great. So yeah, have a fantastic week, guys. Try and think about some of the stuff we've talked about today, you know, keeping it simple. Don't overcomplicate things, implement things. And even if you're not sure where to start, just start. And then you can, you can kind of tweak things as you move, but get started is the main thing. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Cheers, Pete.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay. And we'll see you then. Bye-bye.